Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on preparing for the next generation of e-learning, part 1. Before I start, can we just have a show of hands just to make sure that you can actually hear me? So if you can just raise your hand in the panel. That's fantastic. Carla, Binniker, yep, Roxanne, okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So I know that my voice is reaching you. Look, thank you very much for joining us for this webinar, which we thought is going to be very pertinent to all the people who are connected with learning, and especially in online learning. And at the moment, we've got 31 people, participants, and that number will increase in the next couple of minutes. And in that list, I see some names that that we're familiar with, and I know that those names do have considerable amount of expertise in e-learning and deployment of learning in general. So including Angela from MYOB, Binny from Ramsey, Judith from Azure. So yes, Marlo from SM Retail. So look, lots of familiar faces in there, and I know there's a lot of expertise in the audience. And what I'd like to do is just to make sure that this session is actually interactive, in the sense that we would absolutely love to have your feedback, your comments, your insights, and if you can send them through the chat box, I or the Upside team will respond to them as soon as possible. So your questions, insights, complaints, anything is very much welcome. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you've got any questions, please do raise them through the chat box. During the webinar itself, we will be showing you couple of screens, and also we'll be sending you some links. Right. So the other aspect is that this session is being recorded, so for replay for people who have missed out. Okay, so let's get on with the business of the webinar introduction of the presenters. So we've got Amit Garg. Amit Garg is the founder and director of Upside Learning Solutions, a person who's very much interested and passionate about learning technologies, especially the upcoming learning technologies and the potential that they have for businesses and organizations to deliver business value. So Amit, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Stephen. Good afternoon.
Excellent. Yes, good afternoon, good morning. Actually, we've got audience from all across Asia Pac, and probably even a couple from the US. So, depending on where you are in the geography around the world, appropriate greetings. A little bit about myself. I'll be presenting the first part of the webinar. I am the Director of Client Solutions for Asia Pacific for Upside Learning Solutions. Like Amit, have worked in the e-learning space, online learning, HR consulting for close to 20 years now. So it's an area that is very much something that I'm very passionate about. So we're looking forward to this webinar. So let's talk about the agenda very quickly. We're going to spend a couple of minutes on getting to know Upside Learning for those who haven't come across Upside Learning before. We also want to talk about how we can provide you with services and advice around the move to the next generation of e-learning. Then I'll cover the move to mobile, especially in terms of responsive and HTML content. Now that is something that we are definitely experiencing more and more of. Amit will be covering Tin Can API. So for those who know Tin Can API, it has a lot of potential, and Amit will be covering that Tin Can API. We do have some time for question and answers at the end of the session, but please feel free to ask questions at any time during the presentation. We'll do our best to respond there and then. So very happy to interrupt our presentation for answering any of your questions. Okay, so look, moving on, let's talk about very quickly about the solutions. We play essentially into two spaces of learning technologies. Number one is learning technology platforms, which includes our learning management system, and which is cost effective and also very intuitive to use. It provides features and functionality around classroom learning, online learning, and social learning, plus of course the usual reporting and administration and logistics for learning. The one that we're quite excited about is our Upside to Go LMS, which is essentially designed and focused towards mobile LMS and performance support. And you will see in some of the content that we cover today that that is an area of intense interest for a lot of learning professionals. Right. Then we also we do build online custom content for customers all around the globe, and we have a slide on seeing some of our customers. This we use traditional tools like Articulate, Captivate, and other tools to build the content, but we've also got our own technology, including Fred, which is our framework for responsive e-learning development, to develop content. We also develop content specifically for mobile learning, so that includes learning for tablets and smartphones. In fact, we think that we've got fairly good expertise in the space of mobile learning. And of course, we also do a lot of traditional online learning in terms of building online courses for PCs on traditional LMSs. So that's a little bit about solutions. A lot more information on our website, so I won't spend much time there. In terms of the customers that we service is around the globe. Though bulk of our business comes from the UK and the US, and we have been serving customers in Australia for the past 5 years, with an increasing presence in Asia, including Thailand and Singapore, Hong Kong. We are also starting to get customers from the Middle East and South America, which really I think places us in a position to feel the pulse of the learning and also understand the innovations that are going across the world. So Amit is more across our customers globally. I focus on Asia Pacific, so I'll actually ask Amit, or if you've got any questions regarding any global trends, Amit and myself will be very happy to respond. Along the way, we are 10 years old as of this year. We've picked up awards, and some of them we are more proud of than the others, including Brandon Hall. We've won multiple awards over multiple years. We've also won eLearning Team of the Year 2013. As a company, we've been recognized for a company that's fast-growing and innovative. So all this information is on the website. But regardless, to say that we're quite happy with the awards that we've picked up on the way. Some of our clients across the globe, in Australia, we've got Australian Aerospace, Bank of Queensland, and Tyco, which is Walmart in Australia. And across the globe, we've got Mars Chocolate, Vocalect, L'Oreal, Bell, etc. So a lot more. These are only a few select clients. But essentially, what it has given us is the experience and the capability of working with various types and sizes and industries of organizations, and hopefully that's given us a rich mix of skills within the team that we have. So we've got a team of 200. Most of them are based in India, and that's where our development center and also Amit is also located there. So we build our own technology platforms. We build our own content. We really don't outsource anything to anybody else except maybe some translation into Mandarin, etc. But apart from that, it's our team. It's a rich mix of skills and experience in e-learning, serving customers for 10 years. So we're pretty happy with that. So how can we provide some help to you in terms of next generation learning that we'll be covering? Help you with the needs analysis, design, planning. So if you are new to, for example, mobile learning, and you're struggling with making a start or don't know where to go, we'll be happy to provide you some advice. But we also have platforms, both Upside LMS and Upside to Go, which are very mobile ready. In fact, Upside LMS is going to be responsive, which we'll talk about very soon in the next couple of months. Upside to Go it lives in the mobile world, so it's already mobile ready. Upside to Go works on Android, it works on BlackBerry, it works on Apple devices, and also Windows 8 very soon. We also produce a lot of HTML responsive courses for a lot of customers, in addition to, of course, sometimes using tools like Captivate, Articulate, but also using our own framework. The one thing that we have recently set up is testing. What we have realized that testing is going to play an important part, because all of a sudden you're now having to test the online courses and LMS on multiple types of devices, different screen sizes. So we actually now have a testing lab. It doesn't matter who builds the content. We're happy to test it for you and send it to you. So more details coming up later on that. Look, across all this, we our fundamental philosophy is essentially to have technical excellence and reliability. Innovate. You'll see some of our innovations in terms of thread and upside to go, but also cost effectiveness. We realize that the world has changed, and what customers require are solutions which are business outcome focused, but at the same time deliver more value for more money. So let's talk about the 4 trends that we're going to cover. Part 1, which is today, we're going to cover HTML5 and responsive, and also Tin Can API, or Experience API as it is being called now. We'll also have part 2, which will be scheduled a little bit later, and for those who have registered, we'll also send you an email inviting you to attend part 2, which will cover incorporating social learning, social media, and the DIY content. So essentially, this is where we think that learners will be able to generate their own learning content and provide it to other learners. So this is another movement that we're seeing. So we'll cover that in part 2. So we hope that you'll enjoy part 1 and also turn up for part 2. So let's talk about what is HTML5 and responsive. And before we do that, let me just very quickly shoot across a poll. So you will see a poll come up on your screen very soon, and if you can just respond to that, that'll be fantastic. So you should be able to see the poll, and if you can just click on the responses. Yep, they're starting to come through, which is absolutely fantastic. Excellent. So we've got 44%. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. We've got up to 60. Oh, excuse me. Okay, 70. I'm going to close now. Thanks for your responses. And I'm going to share the results, which would be coming up on your screen very soon. There you go. So in terms of the question about the move from HTML5, from Flash to HTML5, you can kind of see that about 28% are moving to HTML5 now, 25% next 6 months. So more than 50% are moving in the next 6 months, and 22% have no plans or haven't thought about it. And for those 22%, I hope today's webinar will help you make a start, because I think it's an important consideration that's going to come into play sooner than we realize. And I think the reason for that really is the fact that the adoption of HTML and converting from Flash is being driven by consumer trends and by IT departments. So they're kind of mandating that Flash should not be used, and we've talked to a few customers who've already done that. So just need to be aware that that will happen in the organization, and also the learners are moving to mobile devices, which makes it quite easy to view HTML courses. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Very interesting results. So let's talk about HTML5. So HTML5 essentially is it was developed by the W3C consortium, and it's a new version of, I guess, the latest version of HTML. Till now it's been HTML4, which was quite path-breaking in its own right. HTML5 is a new version focusing on the need of web applications developers, and also addressing some of the deficiencies in the current HTML standards. What HTML5 does is that essentially it has new elements, as you can see from the screen, and I'm no expert in HTML5, but what I do know is that it provides a lot of flexibility and a lot of other features which are missing. from the current standards of HTML, but what it's also doing is that it is providing a very, very viable alternative to Flash. So you know, we've lived in the world of Flash as you know, especially e-learning professionals. We are used to Flash a lot. In the new world, Flash may not play you know, a big role at all. Now, when that's going to happen, we'll have a discussion, and I'll ask Amit to comment on that. But that's HTML5, and this is the space that we spent a lot of you know, already spent a lot of time on. So, will Flash be replaced by HTML? The conclusion from, look, there is no clear answer, and I've done a lot of reading, especially today morning, anticipating some questions from you. But essentially, I think it's inevitable as mobile devices don't support Flash, and there is a lot of consumption of through the internet happening through mobile devices. For that reason alone, that mobile devices like Apple, Android don't really support Flash. The use of Flash is going to decrease, but it's going to be gradual. Because HTML5 is not perfect. The tools aren't there as yet to build easy HTML5 solutions. And I'm going to ask Amit to Amit, if you can just you know, maybe just comment on when do you think that the world will move completely from Flash to HTML?
Yeah, I think the movement to HTML in e-learning domain is probably faster than what we are seeing in general. Maybe it is because the L&D departments are kind of future-proofing themselves by creating stuff in HTML so that whenever the organization moves to mobile devices, officially, non-officially, and they start supporting tablets, etc., they are not caught on the wrong foot. So I think even if for preventive measures, I think movement to HTML in the e-learning domain has been quite fast, especially in the last 2 years. So if we were to look back at what we are doing today, I think we do more than 75% of our work is really in HTML5. You know, very little is really in Flash now.
Okay, thank you, Amit. That's fantastic. So you know that's what's happening. But like we mentioned that HTML5 is not perfect, and we'll see the reasons why. But let's look at the reasons as to why HTML5 is going to replace Flash sometime in the future. Number one are the mobile capabilities. So HTML5 is a lot more friendly to mobile. It also allows you know, semantic markups. What that means is that in Flash, the search engines can't really get into Flash, right? But anything on HTML5 allows search engines to get into, which means that the content then becomes searchable, right? So it may not be that relevant to learning, but if you look at the marketing department or the IT department who thrive and who survive on search words, you know, for them it is absolutely critical. And when when they make up their mind to use HTML5, then learning and e-learning has to move along with it. So that's what I said in a way that you know, the hand has been forced. There's also question of security. So Flash was deemed insecure. If you have, I don't know if you had a chance to read the article written by Steve Jobs, and the source is there on the slide. Essentially, that was a very seminal blog that he wrote about why Flash is not being supported by Apple, and I think that's where the tide turned. Now, some of it is obviously very accurate, some of it is you know, maybe not that accurate, but certainly that turned the tide. And the other advantage of using HTML5 is that it doesn't chew as much battery as Flash, right? So mobile, we all of us are aware that needs to be charged 24 hours a day to keep it going. Therefore, anything to conserve any amount of power would be good. Also, cross-browser compatibility. What that means is that once you've built in HTML5, in theory, it will work across all of the latest browsers, across all of the latest operating systems, right? So you know, it does present a very happy future in terms of development. But there are challenges, and I've listed 4. There's a whole article from e-learning industry in whether HTML5 is ready for, you know, e-learning industry. Right. So first of all, that it is not fully supported by browsers. So not especially the legacy browsers. So IE7, IE8 don't support HTML5 very much. So I think Amit, do you know, just in terms of the older browsers, how is that? How do we support that?
Yeah, I think what we're doing is one of the things that we are facing is most of the times we have desktops as well as tablets to be supported. So since that desktops are there in the mix, we typically end up having HTML4 components as fallback options. So especially if IE is the target browser, we end up having fallback options in HTML4. So we don't really end up creating pure HTML5 courses. We typically have a mix of 4 and 5, 4 being used primarily as a fallback for older browsers.
Thanks, Amit. Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's like we mentioned, it's not a perfect solution. There is a little bit of I guess coding intervention required. The tools to develop online learning courses themselves have not really matured to the same extent. I'm sure they will, but it'll take some time. And you can see that I've just got a poll on. If you can respond to that poll on the screen, that would be fantastic. But while you're doing that, the other reason is that, and a big one for learning professionals, is that in terms of graphics and animations, delivery through HTML5 is limited, right? So it's less than what you can easily program in Flash, and that is a big consideration. So if you can imagine a course that is highly interactive, you really need to think very carefully about converting the entire course as is to HTML5. It does tend to take more time and be more expensive. I think our stats are that to build the same course in HTML, it takes about 25% longer. I've just got a few comments which I've been ignoring, so let me just mention those. Okay, so there's one from Sangeeta saying, is there any software or application that will help us reuse Flash file or to move it to HTML5, or do we have to start from scratch? So Amit, can I direct that question towards you in terms of converting current?
Yeah. That,
okay, fair enough.
But the answer is really that if you have smaller and simpler Flash files, you can certainly convert them to HTML through tools. I think one of them was Swiftly that I came across, which was from Google, I believe. But most of the tools that have come across on this front are really not able to handle complex interactivities and long animations. So that does not work very well in HTML when you convert it from Flash to HTML. If you can also use some browsers, there were a few browsers available which could help you play, and if you do a quick Google search, you'll find a few of those. They would help you play Flash on iOS devices, but once again, I think there is a lag when it comes to interactivities and of course animations, and of course interactivities cannot be played out because there is a wrapper in which it is playing.
Thanks, Amit. We've also, Sangeeta just mentioned that they're not using Flash in Commonwealth Bank anymore. We've also, Judith from Ashurst saying the process of changing our LMS, so likely to drive the change to HTML5, which is a great point, Judith. Even the LMS needs to be, I guess, mobile ready, especially in terms of responsive. So your LMS needs to be mobile ready, and also your content. Marlo from SM Retail is talking about setting up e-learning systems, but we're also looking to incorporate the best solutions which will address our needs. And I think that's a great place to start, Marlo, I think, at this point in time. We've also got one saying that a couple of people have commented they're still on Flash, and that's fair. So certainly I think you might need to think about how to move to Flash. Okay, so certainly there's also a little bit of lack of support for audio and video. Now what I mean by this is that there are certain tags within HTML5 which support, but in terms of controlling audio and video through Flash, it was a little bit easier. HTML5 is a little bit more complicated. So this slide just shows that you just need to be aware that it is not that easy. So here's just what is responsive. Responsive is essentially e-learning that responds to device size. So hopefully I can show you a responsive course very soon. But here is essentially the same course viewed in different browser sizes. So I did that in the morning, right? And what I would encourage you to do is go to http://bit.ly/Fred1, right? And if you go there, you can see a responsive course. When you do log in and launch the course and it opens up in a browser window, just resize the browser, up, down, smaller. Take it to the PC to, this is a PC view. Then you've actually got the tablet view, and you can see the same content has actually changed in its orientation and the way that content is displayed and how it is displayed. And then the third little image is really smartphone size, and you can see that the navigation, for example, has moved from bottom to the top, right? So I would encourage you to go to that link and launch the course and see how responsive courses do act. So let me try and show you that in a couple of minutes. So what are the benefits of responsive? Essentially is that enhanced reach through mobile. So you build once and it is available for all kinds of devices. It is single source. So again, it's you build it once, which means that there is lower cost. You don't have to build multiple versions for different types of devices, and you can then track across devices, which means that a person can start a course on one device, on their PC, on the train, do it on the smartphone, go home and do it on the tablet, right? So certainly that allows the mobility of learning to take place. So the basic premise that of my part of the presentation essentially is that a lot of our computing is moving from PC to mobile and tablets, right? And in terms of we can see this happening. Personally, I do use tablets and smartphones quite a bit. So the basic assumption between what we are presenting in this webinar really is that because your employees, customers, stakeholders are going to be using more and more mobile devices, hence your learning also needs to be accessed through mobile devices. I mean, the logic is pretty simple. The reality is that this year more number of tablets and smartphones, etc., outsold PCs by a big margin, right? And certainly if you look around, if you're traveling in a train or standing at a bus stop, you can see that people are accessing internet through the mobile devices. And the stat on the screen says that 90% use multiple screens sequentially. So not only are they using different devices, but they are using it different types of screens at different places. So if you're at a bus stop, you tend to use a smartphone. If you're sitting down in a train, maybe you can use a tablet. If you're at work, you might use your tablet or desktop. So 98% moved between devices the same day. So it's quite an interesting stat. The one report that I do want to bring to your attention is mobile learning in the workplace report, which we have sponsored, and it's just been released. Now you can see the link there, and Pranjali will also type the the link in the chat box for you to go and click and send it across. But essentially, it's a report that talks about the mobile learning in the workplace, and I've just picked up some of the statistics in the next few slides, but it is a very very good report in terms of the data that it has, and towards maturity has been tracking these trends for a long time. So Amit, can you just talk about this report and what it does, Amit?
Yeah, this is essentially a in-focus report based on the benchmark survey that Towards Maturity carries out every year now. And a good thing about that survey is that it's been expanding into other countries. So originally it was more Europe focused, but it has now got a lot of participants from Australia, from India, and from other parts of the world as well. And what it does is essentially tries to compare the leading organizations and their adoption statistics with how others are doing. And I think it presents a very good picture of what the state of the market is in terms of mobile adoption, what people are adopting it for, what challenges they are facing, etc. So it would be a good read if you care to.
Look, and the link is there, so bit.ly mlearn paper. So if you can go there and download, that'll be fantastic. Now, what I've got in front of the screen is the demo course that we have online, which you can go. And very quickly, I just want to show you how responsive courses work. So this is one course. At the moment, it's being viewed on the PC, so I can go that way, right? Now, if I go tablet size, you can see that it is changing shape and form across tablets, across smartphones, and it's actually contextualizing the information and the visuals that need to be presented across the devices, right? So let's have a look at one of the case studies here, the social engineering. So this is about information security. So this is what typically you might see on a PC, right? And sorry, I think it will come in a couple of seconds on your screen. There you go, right? So this is your PC screen, right? And if you resize that, you can see that the images and the text are moving and getting optimized, right? And there you go. So this is it's changed orientation. You can see that the content has now changed to a tablet size, and it you kind of scrolling down instead of moving across. If you go, and you can see the menu is at the bottom. If you shrink this more to smartphone size, you can see the menu as the navigation menu has gone on the top, right? So that is responsive. It's essentially responding to the screen you have. It's the same course. It just senses what device size you have and changes that. So there you go. So that's a little bit about responsive. You've seen this is a simulation. I guess you click that and identify whether it's safe or a risk. Right, and if I resize this, right, you can see that it's the navigation for the image has changed. On a smartphone now, it's asking you to kind of scroll right or downwards, while on the PC it just showed you the whole image. Right. So there you go. So hopefully you can spend some more time on responsive. I think the best way to define responsive is to kind of just show a course. Now I've got a couple of questions, Amit. The first question is HTML5 suitable for all types of learners? Some people are visual, and I guess some are not. So that's from Ameya. So Amit, any thoughts about whether HTML5 is suitable for all types of learners?
Yeah, I think if you're talking of accessibility requirements, I think HTML5 fulfills those much better than what Flash was able to do. So yes, I think from accessibility point of view, it is definitely more suitable.
Thanks, Amit. And look, I think we're getting a lot of questions. It's HTML5 is just another way of producing an output. I think, as Amit pointed out, that it does impact. It'll make easier for some people who are tactile, so need to touch the screen, to flip. I think it'll be better for them. There's a question from Aaron: how does the demo work with touch interaction? So Amit, so essentially, if you want to access Amit, so what are the considerations for a course? And we've got a slide on that, but very quickly, how does the design paradigm change with touch?
Yeah, I think in terms of purely thinking about navigation patterns and where to place touch elements and how big the size of each touch is and how close each of those buttons is, all of those will come into play the moment you start thinking about trying to interact with a touch device versus a mouse. A mouse was very pointed device, and you could have very fine pointed, very fine elements. But with touch, no, you cannot, and also you need to make it more intuitive in the way people are using their devices already, and incorporating those features so that people don't find it difficult to, almost relearn how to navigate through your programs.
Thanks, Amit. And we've got a couple of questions around, what tool we've used to build the demo. It's actually using our own framework called FRED, which is Framework for Rapid eLearning Development. There's also a question from Sangeeta about whether the same course needs to be published multiple times for different kind of devices. No, Sangeeta, it's just one course, you publish it once, and you just access it through different devices, and it just adopts and adapts to the screen size there. There's a comment from Aaron for Amit. Amit, if you can turn up your mic, that'll be good. How do we get Fred? Look, there's some information about Fred, and we can cover that. We can get in touch with you, Aaron, regarding that. From Nadia, again, the question about what have we used to use a demo. It's Fred, our own framework. So that's a framework that we've been using for that. For developing HTML content. Okay, very quickly, some stats from mobile learning in the workplace report. Just to emphasize a point that mobile learning is on the increase. Organizations are providing learners with more and more smartphone tablets, and also have a BYOD policy. You can see the stats there. 52% provide smartphones. In fact, what Towards Maturity have done is kind of differentiated between your average company and also companies that are good at learning. These statistics for companies that are good at learning are higher, right? So it's higher than the figures that are there. The uptake of mobile devices varies. The good news in Australasia is that we are one of the highest, 85%. So certainly more than UK and other European countries, along with right up there with the US and Canada. So definitely proof that learning is going to, or at least our learners are going to move towards mobile learning, and we'll have to go along with them. The top drivers for M-learning in 2013 is that 80% support at the point of need. So essentially, it's performance support. So quickly, open your mobile devices and do a little learning bite. 79 to improve engagement, 77 to improve communication between individuals, and 76% so that learners can use their own mobile devices. The benefits, improvements that they have identified are 43% increase in productivity, 73% increase in revenue. That's an interesting statistic. We'll have to look a little bit more into that. And 44% time to competency, i.e. quicker to learn because the information is accessible and also at the point of performance support, and 75% number noticing positive changes in staff behavior. Now we've got a comment on this stat from Jimmy. In terms of benefits, did 43% say there is improved in productivity, or is there a 43% improvement in productivity? It's actually the latter. So there is a 43% improvement in productivity. So that's the stats that the report has done. So if you want to download the report and have a look, that'll be fantastic. So so look, there are a couple of other questions around Fred, which we will cover hopefully at the end, because we're running out of time with the content. So for the stats that we had about the participants' own view on adoption of mobile learning, you can see that there are quite a few organizations that are at the mature stage, which is established and embedded. So quite a few organizations, 72 and 78%, have already embedded or established mobile delivery through for learning, right? So you can see that they are well far down the journey. So I'm aware I'm running out of time, so I need to hand over to Amit very soon, but just a slide on, very quickly go through the slides. The 4 key considerations are browser, operating system, device combinations. So you need to be aware there are lots of combinations. Usability changes from a mouse to swipe or scrolling. Content development and treatment it changes. The way you do instructional design, storyboard, the amount of control you have, that all changes in the development process. So very quickly, I'm going to look, there are lots of combinations, and that's one of the challenges with mobile learning, that operating system and screen sizes, and we've discussed this before, and you can see the screenshot of the difference in browser. Just by using the same course, using different browsers has different results. I'm going to skip usability. Essentially what we're saying is usability changes from just using the mouse to now touch, swipe, scroll, right? So it's a whole new way of thinking, and you can see that the same course on PC, you use the mouse, and as somebody asked, then you scroll, and you can use a demo in your iPad and see how that works. So instructions, you need 2 sets of instructions, right? So first for PC, that is, now use your mouse to click the right answers to tablets, tap on the right answer. So you need to almost in your storyboard have 3 sets of instructions. Text readability, you just need to plan out very carefully how much text and images. Hopefully they don't get squished too much. In the case of smartphone, in our FRED framework, we kind of get rid of the images because that's not the essential information. What I want to do is I just want to take you to one last slide, which is about the implication of the development process, right? So the development process changes from highly structured to something that's fluid and iterative, right? So you just need to be aware that the design process will become. You need to prototype. You need to build partially first, and then increase the definition of the product. So it's not a product that you can think of right from the beginning and fine tune it to the nth degree. You will require to be iterative and you need to be flexible. So even the storyboards, you probably shouldn't be very prescriptive because things will change as you go along. So look, I'm at the end of my time, actually more than that, and at this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Amit to cover something that probably requires another 1 hour to do. We were aware when we started this session that we might be running sort of short times. Amit, I'm going to make you the presenter so that you can talk about Tin Can.
Thanks, Jivan. Okay, can you hear me all right now?
Yes, we can.
And can you see my slides?
Yep, it's all good.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the Tin Can API, and I'll start with a quick poll question about just to understand where we are on our understanding of Tin Can API. If you could please submit in your responses.
Yeah, they're coming in. They come in, Amit.
Yes.
67 have voted, so we can, 71 have voted, so we can close the poll. But essentially, 64% don't know much about Tin Can API. 15% are exploring now. So I'm going to close the poll, and I'm going to hopefully that will be shared.
Wow. Okay. So not really unexpected. Tin Can is fairly new, and it's not as straightforward as well. And there are a few things, but it has great promise. So it makes all the sense to really go in deep and understand what Tin Can is and what it can do. So we'll start with what we have today here. Just to let you know what Tin Can is. It's the next generation of SCORM, and SCORM, I'm sure most of you would know, is the standard which lets the e-learning world operate today. It lets the LMSs talk to the courses, and courses from different vendors can work on your LMSs. So it's the operating standard with which different pieces of the e-learning puzzle really talk to each other. But then SCORM is really more than 10 years old, and it was great for the time when it was really launched, and it brought this consistency of how things were being created by different vendors, and it helped the industry to grow. But over the years, we've discovered several limitations in SCORM, some which were inherent, and probably some which kind of came along as technology changed and our user behaviors also changed. So Tin Can is essentially the next generation of SCORM. It is also called the Experience API or X API. That was essentially meant to be its name. But when ADL, who are the stewards of this standard and also SCORM, handed over this project to Ristusi Software, who created these standards, Tin Can was really the project name, and that has stuck on, and everybody just uses Tin Can as well as Experience API or S API.
Amit, can I just interrupt? We can't see your screen, so you might want to share your presentation again.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. It happens. Technology, as we all know. Yes, yeah, we can see it now. It's good.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Cool. So it is the next generation of SCORM, also known as Experience API or X API, and being developed by Ristusi Software. ADL being the stewards of this, as well as SCOM. So people will use all these three names interchangeably. So just be aware of that. What it aims to do is overcome limitations of SCOM. So quite a simple objective, though it starts getting very complicated when you start building in all the expectations you have from new standards. Okay, let's try and see what it is and how is it different from SCOM. And I've used this onion here because Mike Rustisi, the CEO of Rustisi Software, often tries to describe tin can in different layers of an onion. So essentially, as you peel it more and dig deeper, you will discover more things in tin can. And he's quite right. And it takes a lot of understanding in SCOM and how you can really use it. So on the surface, it may be very simple, but the implications are really quite game-changing in terms of what L&D can achieve with tin can. And we truly believe that the deepest layers of this onion are very interesting and kind of game-changing for L&D. So we'll not really go into all the layers. It won't be possible in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But yes, let's start getting an overview of what it is and how is it different. So the first key difference is that you don't need a browser to work with tin can, or tin can doesn't need a browser to function really. What it does is instantly freeze your learning from the browser, which SCOM had actually tied to a browser for last 10-15 years. So if you think of any learning that you are able to track today, is probably because it is in a browser and being delivered through your LMS. Second thing that it is, how it is different is that it works on mobile devices. And when I say mobile devices, there are smart folks who have managed to make SCOM work with mobile devices as well by creating wrappers and offline players, etc. But just working with mobile on SCOM is more difficult, but with tin can it's much more easier. So what it is aiming to do is enable the mobile learning that is going to come in a big way, which SCOM was really not helping much with. A good example here is people who are using Articulate Storyline. It has an iPad application which uses tin can compliance to do the tracking for only that part. The rest could be SCOM. If you take that mobile example a little forward, we would find performance support is an area that we would typically be accessing through mobile phones and in other ways as well. Let's say that you were using or watching a YouTube video for learning something, or maybe reading something on the web to just find how to do things and something that wasn't really taught to you, etc. So essentially all of these are examples of performance support, watching a video, reading a blog post, those kind of things, maybe reading a PDF file, maybe accessing information on your mobile. Each of these can also be tracked now. Now, performance support was never meant to be tracked in SCOM because there was no completion or pass-fail criteria on performance support. But with tin can, you possibly can track performance support and be able to improve the performance support materials, placement of things, etc. Because it doesn't need a browser, it also enables tracking of simulations and games. Now, simulations and games are not not best suited for browser-based deployment, and you would see the best of simulations and games are actually outside browsers and mostly on consoles, if not in exe files on your desktop or as apps on your phones, but they are really outside the browser. And also the data structures of simulations and games are really not synced with what SCOM needed. SCOM really needed completion, pass-fail criteria. Simulations really need how much time you spent on a level, how many levels have you achieved, which decisions were right, etc. So you can possibly do much more deeper reporting on simulations and games, especially the scenario-based ones, and that could give you a lot of meaningful information about how your learners are learning through those simulations and games. And of course, I'm talking of serious games and educational simulations here. Also, it allows for tracking of offline activities. Now, offline activities could be your classroom training, which some LMSs did provide provision for earlier. But what it does now is that you can possibly track any activity. So even if you were mentoring someone, let's say, you were training someone, you held a lecture where you were briefing new staff about certain product or tool or process, and all of that can be added as information for as a learning thing against your records. Even your boss or a manager can add records of performance of his staff members in a system. So any offline activity can be tracked through Tin Can now. And of course, you can have events, so you participate in conferences and events, maybe this webinar, so it could be added as a learning activity where you can easily say, I attended a webinar on Tin Can, something like that, maybe an overview session on Tin Can. But essentially what Tin Can is enabling is capturing that information. Now, these are essentially the ways in which Tin Can is different from SCORM. We'll see how Tin Can really functions. Just to give you a quick overview of what Tin Can is, it's really made up of 3 key components, and they are called statements, storage, and services. And these are not terms really given by Tin Can. This is how I saw the structure of Tin Can. So there are 3 key elements to Tin Can, and it would be great to understand with this structure. The first element, which is statements, is really about a combination of an actor, verb, and object. So something like, I did this, Alan attended a webinar, Jeevan completed safety course, etc. So you could create statements about anything that you did, any course that you completed, any learning that you attended, any training that you conducted, any session that you attended, any mentoring that you gave, etc. So essentially any sort of activity that you're doing, essentially it is an activity stream, something that we are now very habitual of doing on Facebook or LinkedIn, where we keep sharing our status updates, etc. Essentially picking up from there, these are activity streams in statement formats which can be added to a storage. So these are all the statements or different types of statements that can be really built in, and this forms the data of your Tin Can system. Now these statements can be generated through 3 mechanisms. One is a programmed statement generation. So let's say you are taking a course on an LMS, and the course, when you go to every time you click the next button, it can generate a statement. Every time you complete an interactivity, it can generate a statement. If there is a multiple choice question or a scenario based question, it can generate a statement very specific to that question, saying that you chose the second best option. So that's one way of generating statements, which is programmed. The second is through sensors. And through sensors means, let's say you have an app on your phone which is essentially GPS enabled, and it is enabled to send statements to some storage, and it is sending statements every time you visit a place. So it can maybe just send statements that you were at the station, you visited the school, you visited the hospital, you visited this place, etc. So essentially there could be sensor based statement generation, and with the advent of wearables in our lives, we will see more and more statements being generated automatically, of course with our initial permission and approval, but such statements being generated and sent to a storage. So if you have used any of those Nike Fit apps or others, and the wearables, if you have experienced any of those, some of those would be sending such statements which would record your actions, your activities, and what you were doing and where you were, etc. So that is the second way of generating statements. And the third is manually inputting statements. So if I was watching a video online, I could send that information through something called a statement generator plugin, which could be put on in my browser, and through there it captures the URL of the site I was watching, and I can add a few fields over there, and that could be sent to a storage. So I can enter that. So I can choose what information I send to that storage myself. So some of those statements would be manually generated like this. Maybe your supervisor or boss can generate manual statements about your performance. So again, there would be a statement creator, some sort of a utility through which the boss is creating those statements on your performance. So there are three ways in which these statements will be generated: programmed, sensor-based, and manually. So that's first part of tin can. The second part of tin can is really the storage, and it is also called LRS. The full form is Learning Record Store, where, as the name indicates, it only stores the learning records. And learning records are essentially the statements that we just talked of. So any statement that is being generated by any device or in any method or of the three methods that we just spoke of, so it is generated by any device, by any of these methods, it is just getting stored in the LRS. So LRS is the storage where all of these statements are lying one after the other. They are just being logged in, and they lie there until they are being called in by what is called services. So services will be something that is asking for that information from an LRS to do a certain function or perform some sort of a service. So it could be an LMS which has an inbuilt reporting tool. So it asks for all of those statements and does some analysis. Or there are filters within the LMS to filter the data within the LRS and then do some analysis. Or there could be specialized reporting tools to which you can send that information. So these are really three key elements of tin can. Another view of that is, and which is where tin can becomes very interesting, is that if you look at LRS1, which is within an LMS, you can record all sorts of learning activity. And when we are saying learning activity, it is all of those statements coming from any of those sources. You can use it for reporting within that LMS, assuming there is a reporting tool built into that LMS. And that, let us imagine, it is for one organization where you are working now. But when you leave that organization, you may want to send that transcript of your statements to maybe LRS2, which is within the LMS2 or an LMS of the new organization that you are joining. Or you may want to send it to LRS3, which is a personal learning record store, which is more like your portfolio of learning, what you did, whatever you learned in organization 1. So what it is trying to do is, it is trying to free that data from being only bound to one LMS and allowing organizations to share data about individuals when they move from one organization to another, so that all their past learning can be utilized and relied on, and also allowing learners to carry their own data. Now these are possibilities that can be really explored with tin can. It wasn't possible earlier with SCOM. So quickly looking at what can it do for us. First of all, what it is doing is, it is saying that there is no dependence on LMS. So we don't need to start any learning activity in an LMS. The LMS doesn't even need to know whether I am learning. So if I'm watching a YouTube video, my LMS is completely unaware of it, and the LMS did not tell me to launch a particular URL to watch that YouTube video. So I'm completely out of my LMS, but I can still send that statement into a tin can repository, from where it can be pushed back to an LMS. So LMS might actually receive that information at the end, but we are now no more dependent on an LMS to either initiate or be just dependent on an LMS for any other reason. What tin can is also doing is, it is recognizing that learning is everywhere. It is not just in an LMS or in a course, and it is a great opportunity hence for us to capture data about all the informal learning that has been happening in our organizations. I think for very long we have all realized that a lot of learning is happening outside the LMSs and the courses paradigm, and that 70-20-10 model has been really not adopted so well, because there is no way to measure what is happening in that 70 segment. So with tin can, you could possibly have data which helps you analyze how do people learn certain skills and competencies. So for specific skills, if you were to do an analysis, you would know what the paths they were following, and what are the most successful ones, and who are the most competent resources. So you could possibly recommend experts, you could possibly recommend paths to other people to reach same level of skills. You could also spot areas which people are beginning to choose to learn about. So there could be new areas that people want to learn about, and the L&D might actually pick up those initial indications from this data and help build material that can help people learn faster on those particular subjects or topics. So overall, it is essentially freeing the data, so you can be independent of a particular LMS. You can move it around between LMSs and allow the learners to carry their data. This is my last slide. I think we're just running out of time. Give me 2 minutes. So the implications of Tin Can for us, first of all, we don't need to really think that Storm is going away anywhere anytime soon. Mike Rustasi, again the CEO of Rustasi Software, kind of gives an analogy of DVD players and VHS players. Just because DVD players came onto the market did not mean that VHS players and VHS content was scrapped altogether. Similarly, SCOM content and SCOM systems will remain in existence parallelly with Tin Can till Tin Can becomes the only and the major standard to be followed. So I think both of these will coexist together for a reasonable amount of time. Also, Tin Can is fairly new. It was the standard was released last year, and organizations are still just kind of evolving in their own thinking about Tin Can, and hence the services side, the third aspect of Tin Can, is kind of picking up, where organizations are beginning to offer services on Tin Can data. One challenge, or maybe really an opportunity, is that you will generate massive amounts of data. Think about sensor generated data, which could be just putting in data every second, every minute, maybe every hour for each employee. You could have a lot of data that people are pushing in themselves, and some of that could be really meaningless in terms of analysis that you want to carry out. But again, I think like if you were to go to Facebook and see somebody's profile, quickly in a minute you can possibly guess what that person is most interested in, what their interest areas are, what do they hate, etc. What do they are most worried about. Similarly, through Tin Can data, you could possibly get a good profile view of each individual. However, yes, this is a challenge because you will have a lot of data being generated, and you will need intelligent systems to analyze that data. But the good thing is that you will have data on which you can do things, especially the data about offline activities and informal activities which were not being captured earlier ever. To be more systematic about implementing Tin Can, I think it will require organization-wide planning in terms of how to use Tin Can and what it would be really helpful in. And so it would influence your statement generations in courses, because you will have to build that in your courses. What statements are being generated, and to what level do you want to go, how deep, how many statements do you want to really generate for a course. If you were generating just one statement, it would be like SCOM. You might generate maybe 5-10 statements on the key aspects of the course. Good. You might even generate 100 statements, but you have to justify why do you need those 100 statements, and what will you measure from that, and do you have the measuring capability for that. Similarly, on the informal side, what all do you want to measure? Do you want to create systems where managers are given a kind of a free hand to go and keep entering data about their people, and how do you plan to utilize that data? So things like that need to come in organization-wide planning if you have to exploit Tin Can really.
Amit, Jeevan here. One quick question, which is related to the last point. How is Upside Learning kind of preparing for this Tin Can world?
Interesting. So, in terms of as a vendor, we have our LMS and Upside to Go both becoming compliant with Tin Can. So hopefully the next release, which is in July or August, we will have Tin Can compliancy on our products. On our services, which is content solutions, we have been Tin Can compliant for more than a year, and the framework that we talked of Fred is also tin can compliant. So we could provide those compliancy on courses that we deliver.
Thanks, Amit. And also, just but you don't think tin can is exciting, but given the fact that the awareness about tin can is low generally, we know that from the other discussions we've had. Do you think it will take some time for people to become aware of tin can and for companies to really start using it to its full extent?
Yeah, I think, let me say, tin can is probably where mobile was about 3 years ago, where everybody was becoming curious about mobile and trying to see what is the best way to get started, and there were challenges, and not everybody has really started even today. So I think tin can is in a similar situation. I really don't see that everybody will move on to tin can completely in the next 2 or 3 years. It might take a longer time, but I think getting started with tin can would give you a lot of experience to plan a more organization-wide initiative, which won't happen without experiencing it on shorter projects and smaller initiatives.
Thanks, Amit. But certainly we've given some links, and it can get technical. But I think there are some lovely YouTube resources in our own blog on tin can, which makes it easy to digest. So sorry, Amit, over to you.
Cool. So the next point was really about starting by implementing an LRS. And an LRS is there are open source LRSs available like Learning Locker, which you can implement in your organization. You may want to implement it within your LMS. You may need some technical expertise, and your IT department may be able to help it, or your LMS vendor may be able to do that for you. But if it is not possible within an LMS, you can just install it outside your LMS and start playing with that. Link some of basic activities with that. It will allow maybe a department to start sending statements to that and see what you can pick up from there. But getting that initial experience will be crucial to really implementing tin can at a wider scale. And last, before I close, remember that you can convert SCORM data to tin can data. So you don't have to really worry about all the data is lying in SCORM and what do we do if there's. So LRS is really going to be your central repository of all data. In fact, organizations who have multiple LMSs might benefit most from this, because then they can pull in all the data from different LMSs which don't talk to each other right now, and get it into one LRS where you will have data in just one single format. So you would be able to carry out better analysis through that LRS. But yes, there are tools like SCORM engine which is available, and you may have something available in your LMS if your LMS vendor has already implemented an LRS to convert the SCORM data to tin can data. But that's really possible and would be the way to implement the way you want to merge your LRS with LMS. So that's all from my side on tin can. I'm sorry, we've just overshot our time today.
No problem, Amit. What I've actually done is I asked a question to the audience if they wanted a more detailed session on tin can. There are a lot of positive responses, so we might plan certainly a more detailed session on tin can and the implications, practical implications of tin can and the possibilities and how it's going to impact design and all that. So look, with that, I think we've got a lot of questions. Thank you very much. There's just one question. No, that's all right. We can cover it later. But look, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully the session has been useful. We love feedback about the session. If it's something that we need to improve, if you can just type in the chat box or send us an email, would definitely appreciate. So thank you again for your time, and hopefully the webinar has been useful. Amit, thank you for presenting, and also to the Upside team for organizing this. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.